Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and ladies and gentlemen of the committee. I think you all remember this bill because we've heard it now. I think this will be the third year we've heard it. But from my perspective, Senate Bill 621, which is what we're, right, 621, it's an opportunity to improve our law enforcement, public safety, and increase our tax revenue in this state by nearly $1 billion without raising taxes. It's a very unique opportunity, I think. Just to give you, again, a little bit of perspective, the district I represent is about 29% foreign-born. It's about 23% Latino. I had a Hispanic town hall in my district about 3 years ago, and I went and I talked for about 20 minutes about Medicaid and transportation, transit, education, et cetera. Then I asked for questions. First 3 questions I got were, when is the state of Virginia going to give us driving permits like Maryland and D.C. does? This issue is the #1 issue in the immigrant community in Virginia, and I found that out very quickly. I put a bill in 2016 when I was elected to the Senate, 16. The bill, along with Delegate Bloxham, that bill was referred to a study. The Department of Motor Vehicles assembled a committee, a group, I guess, of about 30, 40, 50 different stakeholders, something like that, had multiple meetings. They came out with a big, long, fat report. And a big, much more robust bill than the one I had drafted, and it's the bill that's now before you. The bill that is in front of you represented DMV's recommendation in end of 2016. The identical legislation in front of you right now is being carried by Delegate Bloxham in the House of Delegates. It was carried by him last year. I'm going to make 4 points about why. Well, first I'm going to tell you what it does. #1, all it says is that the Commonwealth of Virginia, the DMV, can issue temporary driving permits which last for 1 year to anybody that can show they've paid their Virginia taxes, they passed the Virginia driving test, and they pay the fee. The fee is also a fee that is designed to cover all the expenses associated with the increased staffing that's going to be needed to deal with this bill. So completely revenue neutral. And if you all want to increase the fee even higher, I'm sure we'd be happy to increase the fee higher so that the taxpayers be making a profit off this system instead of just being held neutral. So the 4 points I want to say, or the points I want to make here, is that this would affect there's about 400,000 people that potentially would benefit from this. And this has been studied by numerous groups because it's already been done in a bunch of states. The first point I'll make is about taxes. If 400,000 people file a tax return in the state of Virginia, Commonwealth of Virginia, that show $35,000 of income tax, that would result in an additional $702 million of income taxes paid into this state. You just go Google on the state income tax calculator, type in $35,000. It's $1,700 of taxes a year. Multiply that by 400,000 people, $702 million. We get those people to file their tax returns in Virginia and claim only $35,000. That's nearly $750 million. In addition, one of the consequences of this is a lot of folks have to get their cars titled and licensed over in Maryland. Those folks will be paying, they'll start titling their cars in Virginia, and they'll start paying Virginia auto insurance premium taxes. That's another several $100 million. If we could incentivize people to come to Virginia, take our test, get a license, get a temporary permit, and start and file their taxes here, it would generate $1 billion for us. So it potentially is a huge source of new money for us without raising taxes. #2, safety. Every state that has done this has shown a decline in collisions. It's mainly because folks are required to learn the rules of the road in this state. They're not the same here as they are in other countries. I was just in Peru last month on vacation with my family. The road markings are different, the signs are different, the lights are different, the rules are different, and the rules aren't really followed quite as much there as they are here in terms of people driving. But every state that's done this has shown that when you train and test people, they drive safer. #3, there are fewer hit-and-run collisions. There's been studies done that look at hit-and-runs, and they estimate that over 40% of hit-and-run drivers don't have a proper license. In the states that have done this, hit-and-run accidents go down, which means that more and more people find out who hit them, and they don't have to rely on their own uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. These incidents get taken care of appropriately when there's collisions and people stop and report them, and then the proper insurance companies take care of them. #4, in states that have done this, you see increased cooperation with law enforcement. When people have government ID, they're much more likely to come forward when they see something illegal happen or when their spouse them and their spouse get in a domestic violence situation. So you get better law enforcement coordination. You don't have witnesses that don't show up in court. You have things like that that happen when people have proper government ID. And so we'll have safer communities. Number 5, we'll have lower insurance premiums. If we have more people paying into the insurance pool, we have 400,000 more people paying into insurance, that spreads the risk across more people, which means lower premiums for everybody, because you don't have collisions happening where there's people that aren't paying into the system covering the liability. So we have lower insurance. And lastly, and I would say the most important thing is we'd have improved quality of life for a lot of families and children in this state. Right now, a lot of folks just want to take their kids to the doctor, take them to school, take them to soccer practice, and they can't do so without fear of being arrested. And while the federal government continues to dither over whether or not what they want to do, there's a lot of people here that are present in our state. Them and their children ought to be able to be able to just drive a car without fear of being arrested by our police because they don't have a temporary permit to drive. Now, the last thing I want to say is the DMV has done a mock-up for me. Maybe our pages can you guys hand this out? Of what a potential temporary permit would look like, because there's been some questions about what these things would look like or how they, whether they might be confused with a normal driver's license. And so this is one version they did, and and they can change the colors. And the one I'm handing out to you is more of in pink. The traditional Virginia driver's license is in purple, but you can see on here it says not valid for identification for federal not valid identification for federal voting or public benefit purposes. So it's not Real ID compliant. It's not something that could be used for voting. It's a different color. It wouldn't be confused. To me, and this is what other states have done. The other 12 states that have done this, they do the exact same thing. If the design is an issue, I'm sure the DMV would be happy to talk about. We can talk further about coming up with a better design, but there's very few reasons that I've had identified, and nobody's come to see me that opposes this, that we ought not to do this. I just think it's the right thing to do. I would hope the committee would act favorably on it.
Great. Okay, you have witnesses. Is any questions from anyone on the committee first? I have a question. All right, Senator Chase.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Surovell, first of all, I just want to acknowledge how much time, effort, and energy Senator Surovell has spent on this particular issue. And, each of us up here on the dais are sympathetic and understand, and we've heard testimony year after year after year. One of the things that Senator Surovell and I have been working on is the type of ID that would not be confused with the federal ID. And I'm just going to show some cards that I have, Senator Surovell, where it shows the background is completely different than a Virginia driver's license. As you can see, the color is solid. One of the concerns that I personally have had has been how similar the driver's license that's been proposed, how it's very similar, even the one that's proposed, and we've been working draft after draft after draft trying to get this right, and the challenge has been the little hologram that's on there for security reasons so that it can't be duplicated. So that's one of our biggest challenges that we still have at this point. The second issue that we've had and that we discussed last year was this particular issue of it being more of a federal issue. There are things called international driver's license, which I understand are only 30 days, which doesn't really help a lot of you all in here, and we understand that. But it is a federal issue, and I do have federal contacts, and I've mentioned to Senator Surovell, I'm happy to, reach out to Congress, to our congressmen. Really, that's where this bill should be heard and vetted, in my opinion. It is a federal issue as far as determining legal status, as far as legal status is concerned. The other concern that I have is that if the state of Virginia issues this becomes a state-issued government ID, which has some implications on that. One of those being that if it is a Virginia-issued ID, the person that you're giving that to is assuming that the state of Virginia has verified the identity of that person. So my question to the patron would be, what have we done? If we create a Virginia driver's license, what have we done on our end? What kind of verification to verify the identity of the person on the proposed driver's license?
I'm sure the DMV could talk about what they would do or how they would do it, but I can also, before they answer, and I'm sure they're happy to, I could tell the senator from Chesterfield that this legislation was vetted by the state police, by the sheriffs, by probably numerous, I think the chiefs of police were involved, and the legislation that ended up coming out, I think, they were satisfied with the provisions that were in it in terms of verifying somebody's actual identity. I'm sure the DMV can answer your question about exactly what kind of documents or process they would use if this were adopted.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Chase, one of the things that this bill does, it says, is any applicant has to go through the same process as you would go through to get a regular driver's license, with the exception of proving legal presence. So they would have to prove identity. Now, yes, they would bring a foreign passport, and sometimes it might be difficult to verify that foreign passport, but we'd have to have something to prove identity, something to prove residency, Social Security number. They also would they'd be required to take all the same tests that you would to get a driver's license. So they've got to take the knowledge test, the skills test, eye test. One additional thing, as the patron said, they'd also have to prove that they've paid taxes to the Commonwealth. But we would vet them the same way, with the exception of vetting legal presence. We would vet them to make sure they are who they say they are, they live where they say they are, and they have a Social Security number.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Let me catch you real quick with that comment. But once this is issued, this is an official government document. Virginia is going to say, based upon what we've found, you are who you say you are, and you are where you say you're living. So they now have an official government document to say that. Would that not be true and accurate?
Mr. Chairman, absolutely, that would be true and accurate, just like any other driver's license. And the bottom line, if that customer can't prove their identity, then they're not issued the credential. So yes, we would put them through the same vetting process that we do for anyone who gets a driver's license, with the exception of asking them to prove legal presence.
So you're telling me that DMV is going to be able to go back to the country which they're originated from to make sure they are who they say they are?
If we can't, Mr. Chairman, then we won't be able to issue it. And as to the question about the color, what we were hoping to demonstrate is that, we can work with our vendor, Canadian Banknote, and come up. This is just something that we got done in the last 2 hours. So the bottom line is there are a lot of color palettes that we can use. The only challenge we've got, Mr. Chairman and Senator Chase, is to change the background, because there are, and I can't go into it because I see the press is here and I don't want people to understand all of the security features that are just in that background, because it's not a solid color. If you look, there are lines, and if you put that under a microscope, you would see there are words in that line, and we just couldn't have the same security feature on this credential if it was a solid color. Now, can we change this yellow to pink or to blue, a pastel color? Yes, ma'am, we could. We could not turn it to that dark red that you showed, because we would lose all the security features of it. But could a nice pea green? Yes. And in fact, our juvenile IDs have a green tint to it. So the bottom line, we can work to make sure it's very distinctive without losing the security features that we believe need to be in it.
Thank you. Senator Favola, I think.
You've actually put a statement on here, not valid identification for federal voting or public benefit purposes.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Senator, and far be it for me to correct someone, but you call it a driver's license. It's not. It's a driver privilege card. And absolutely, one of the big distinctions between this and a regular driver's license is what you just read: not valid identification for federal voting or public benefit purposes, which is what the senator's bill requires be printed on the driver privilege card.
So, Mr. Chairman, just to follow up, So the advantage of this, and the only statement, if you will, being conferred, is that the individual bearing this driver privilege card has passed a driver's test, and there is some confirmation about the name and the residency. Other than that, that's what the extent of this driver privilege card. So it ensures that individuals who have it at least can drive safely, have passed a driver's test.
Mr. Chairman, the answer to that is yes, with a couple of exceptions. It also will say that we've verified the Social Security number. But yeah, again, it's a driver privilege card, which by definition means you may use this to drive. And it does not say, obviously, you cannot vote with this, you cannot use this for benefits. It's a driver privilege card.
I mean, Mr. Chairman,
Senator Favolo.
You're right. It would not be really.
I will just make a comment. I see no harm in moving forward with a driver privilege card and a lot of public benefit, as well as the benefits to the individual, because individuals need to be able to drive to work. They need to be able to live their lives in a safe manner. And I think having a driver privilege card enables them to do that and ensures me, as a member of the general public, that individuals on the street actually do have the credentials to be driving. With all the conditions and safeguards we just talked about, I think this is a very reasonable proposal. And I'm prepared to make a motion when you're ready.
I think he has some speakers. Do you have speakers that?
Over here.
I mean, we're going to have 5 minutes
Right.
for those that are in favor, and then 5 for those that are in opposition.
Mr. Chairman, could I just make one really 10-second point?
Go.
Okay, just to follow on what the DMV commissioner said, the other thing that you could not do with this is get on an airplane, because pretty soon you won't be able to get on an airplane without a Real ID compliant ID under federal law. So just another thing to note.
All right. So 5 minutes. So
Mr. Chairman,
start
members of the
now.
committee, thank you for your time. My name is Maria. I'm here with the Virginia Latina Advocacy Network. I'm here to speak in support of this bill. My younger brother has epilepsy, and at the age of 2, he had his first seizure. It took hours for my parents to get to him because they didn't have any quick means of transportation. They didn't know how he was doing, and at one point, they didn't know what hospital he was taken to. And a driver privilege card would prevent a painful experience like this from happening again. It will allow them to take him to his doctor's appointments for treatment, and it will allow them to provide and support my family even more. And a driver privilege card would also mean a safer Virginia for us all. Thank you.
thank you.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Hilda Espinosa, soy de Stafford y soy de Casa.
Good afternoon. My name is Hilda Espinosa. I'm from Stafford, and I'm here representing Casa.
Señores, quiero pedirles hoy que se toquen el corazón como padres y como madres, porque nuestra comunidad se está viendo muy afectada ahora con las personas que no tenemos licencia. Como padres nos estamos viendo frustrados porque no podemos tener acceso a instituciones, a la misma escuela. Nos piden una licencia, una identificación oficial.
I would like everybody to touch their heart because we don't have access to driver's licenses. We're not able to take our children to school. We're not able to take them anywhere because we don't have licenses.
Por favor, necesitamos manejar para tener mejores trabajos, para poder asistir a las consultas con los médicos de nuestros hijos.
Please, we need the licenses because we need to go to work, to go to the hospital for our kids' appointments.
Les pido también que vean que si ustedes nos aprueban la licencia hoy, vamos a contribuir a la economía de nuestro estado. Gracias.
And the reason why we want this is to contribute to the economy of Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the panel. My name is Phil Story. I'm an attorney with the Legal Aid Justice Center and speak in support of this bill. So I just want to clarify a couple of things. So as the Senator Chase mentioned, these cards would not be Real ID compliant. That does not mean that they would be in violation of the Real ID Act. There is nothing in the Real ID Act that prevents states from issuing Real ID compliant driver's licenses and identification, and also issuing identification and driver privilege cards that would not fulfill the purposes or the requirements of the Real ID Act. The Real ID Act only states that an ID that meets those requirements, that a federal agency can accept that for official purposes. A federal agency would not be able to accept the driver privilege card for official purposes, but the federal government has actually issued a regulation in the CFR specifically addressing the state's option, if they want to issue a separate ID card that would not be used for official purposes for federal identification. Thank you.
Got a little less than 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Minh Su. I handed out all the papers to you, which is basically a brief summary of what I'm going to say today. I lived in Virginia for 16 years. I'm currently a DACA recipient. My DACA is going to end in February 2019. Without a driver's license, I wouldn't be able to go to work, actually have a good job around the Annandale area. I sometimes commute all the way to Nova Manassas campus for certain classes. Yeah, thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Jennifer West. I've been a practicing immigration attorney in Richmond since 2002. I would like to note for the committee that the Commonwealth is already issuing driver's licenses to non-citizens, including permanent residents and non-immigrant visa holders. So I trust that DMV already has procedures in place to make sure that that documents are properly reviewed. While this is an issue that concerns immigrants, it's not an immigration issue per se. Immigration is determined by Department of Homeland Security and is a federal, that's a federal thing. This is purely a state matter, and states are the proper entity to determine safety on roads. Thank you.
So you don't think it's a federal issue?
No, sir.
Even though Virginia is going to give them a government ID?
The determination of who drives on the roads is purely a state issue.
Sure, I understand that, but if they had a pathway by the federal government, we wouldn't be in this predicament.
I agree, sir. Until then, we need Virginia to keep the roads safe for everybody. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Berta Yepez Garcia. I am a mother, wife, and also a DACA recipient. I'm here to support the driver privilege card. I have firsthand experience the worry, anxiety, and fear that is being to drive without a license. And I'm sorry, sometimes I question myself, some things that some of us could take for granted, such as driving my daughters to their soccer practice. I would like to thank each and every one of you today for giving me this opportunity to speak on behalf of my family, my friends, my neighbors, and community. Together, we can build a great America and a great Virginia and a greater America. Thank you.
Thank you. If you'll just state your name and your support for the bill.
Hi, I'm Emma Cleveland. I'm here to speak on behalf of one of our members of SEIU 32BJ, Fermina Ayala, who travels 28 miles to get to work on bus and metro every day. It takes him over 2 hours, and he's unable to pick his kids up from school when they're sick. So please do take this into consideration. Thank you.
Senator Carrico, members of the committee. My name is Edgar Allen. I am the chair of the Virginia Coalition of Latino Organizations, and this is the third time that we are here because this is a need. If you just ask everybody, please raise if you support driver license or driver privilege card, you will see that everybody supports. And also, we are Virginians. We live in this Virginia, and we want to make safe Virginia. The only way to do it is if we have driver license privilege, so that we know the rules of the road, and I think that will be beneficial for everybody. So please don't forget, we are also Virginians. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Beatrice Hon Berman, and Chairman Carrico and members of this Senate committee. I am a vice chair of the Virginia Coalition of Latino Organizations, but I have been working in Hampton Roads for over 25 years, cooperating with the police departments in my region. I had a conversation with the police chiefs in my localities, and they actually read the benefits, actually, that are part of this proposal. And from the standpoint of the community to be safe, they see that it will aid their jobs, having the fact that we have drivers from other states, like North Carolina and Maryland, that actually are paying these fees to get driver licenses. So people are driving in Virginia. And this is not an identification card. We clearly define that this card will have in the front stated that this is only for driving purposes. And I think the police officers will be aiding their work, having to stop a person and knowing that they're really providing their real name and a real address. So for the safety of America, I think it behooves our community to do its job. Thank you so very much.
Quickly.
Good afternoon. I'm Father Jack Paziello from Sacred Heart Church, Sacred Heart Center. Every Sunday we have over 1,000 Spanish-speaking people who come to our 4 masses, and I look out upon them, and I know that at least 2/3 of them have been driven to church to exercise their right to practice their religion by people who don't have cards. That means don't have licenses. That means at any place between their houses and the church, they could be stopped. And all they want to do is praise God, as all of us wish to do. So I'm in favor of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here in front of all of you, and thank you for everything that you are doing for us, for Virginians and for USA. I bless this floor that I stand up right now because it's giving too much freedom and no fear. And this time I represent LWCC, Liberal Women of Chesterfield and beyond, and I represent the Hispanic community in that organization. And I just plead to you for the permit to drive in. I had a prison ministry too, and I see so many things, so many fears. But my plea today is the last 70 years I was working for American families, babysitting. I take the kids to the school, to sleeping over parties, to everywhere. And I was working with, my younger girl was 90 years old the last year, and I took it to the hospital and everything because our American families, they were working all the time. We want to take care of them. We don't want to be in fear, just taking care of them, but it's for secure for everybody, not just for the immigrant community. It's for our loved ones, American people too. I plead to you not to let us keep in living in shadows. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak in opposition to the bill? All right, seeing none.
Thank you for the extra 5 minutes.
You're welcome. I think there's a motion. Was there a second? It's been moved and seconded that the bill be reported.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Cosgrove.
I have a substitute motion to pass by indefinitely.
Is there a second? Senator Newman will second. All right. All in favor of passing by indefinitely will vote aye on the electronic voting board.
Seven ayes, 6 nays.
7-6, the bill is passed by indefinitely. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think you need to explain what that actually means. Thank you. All right. If we could clear the room real quickly and so we can move on with our docket.